Thank you for joining us today for the NAIA's State of the Association. My name is Jim Carr, and I'm president of the NAIA. If you're like me, you're looking forward to the day when we can all be together again in person. And I think we're getting close. But we've also become much more savvy in a virtual setting, so I hope you will enjoy today's presentation. Now, if you joined us in recent years, you know we've added a Q&A session immediately after the presentation. That format has been so well received that we've invited Assistant AII Commissioner Meg Shebler to reprise her Barbara Walters role again this year. Fortunately for all of us, she said yes. So at the end of the presentation, you'll need to click on the Zoom link that's on the itinerary at 1:30 p.m. Central. By clicking that Zoom link, you'll join Meg and me for some friendly banter, for her anyway, and some tough questions for me. We solicited questions ahead of time, which we'll start with, but there will also be the opportunity to submit questions during the forum. It's always a good time, so I hope you'll join us for that part of the presentation as well. As you all know, this session is called the State of the Association. So let me start by saying the state of our association is terrific. The NAIA is well positioned to be the leader in small college athletics. Colleges and universities are interested in joining us. And we not only are surviving COVID, but thriving despite the many challenges this horrific pandemic has thrown at us. During the convention, there are sessions devoted to the good work of the Eligibility Center, the progress of ROA, and the strategic plan, both a recap of the plan we are finishing and the one we are presenting to the COP. Workshops and discussions will also focus on NIL, NCRED, student-athlete experience and development, diversity, equity, inclusion, and so much more. With the time I have in this session, I will only scratch the surface, or maybe not even get to some of these. So please get to these sessions if you can to learn about the really cool things happening in your association. Now, what a year it has been. When I think back to last summer, there was not much reason to be hopeful. I remember taking a walk with my wife about this time last year and saying to her, I'm going to go crazy if COVID lasts through the summer. Well, once again, I can be called the jinx because it became obvious a short time later that this pandemic was going to last much, much longer. COVID cases and deaths continued to climb, and every time the country tried to reopen, cases spiked. Then we heard from medical experts that COVID would be at an all-time high during the winter, causing particular challenges for the NAIA calendar, with fall championships occurring and winter sports getting underway. So we had every reason to go into survival mode and focus solely on containment and mitigation efforts. But what did NAIA members do? You did what you always do. You remained hopeful and optimistic that we could find a way. Your confidence that as an association we could find a way for our student athletes to compete was crucial. The NAIA staff and leadership groups faced some really tough decisions, but with your support and your focus, we were able to get NAIA competition up and running. So in contrast to other organizations, the NAIA took the approach that we would find a way to get to yes and offer competition and championships for our 77,000 student athletes. And we used these primary guiding principles, and I believe they've served us really well. First, the health and safety of student athletes and surrounding communities were paramount. While we were committed to having competition in 2021, we were not going to sacrifice the health and safety of our students or the communities that embrace the NAIA and give so much each year in hosting our events. The second principle was that decisions should support the viability of member institutions. We know that athletics is a key enrollment driver for the majority of our members, so we prioritized getting student athletes back on campus. Third, the NAIA should provide flexibility and autonomy for institutions and conferences. We know that our membership is diverse with differing needs. Therefore, our longstanding principle of institutional autonomy was critical to members successfully returning to athletics. At the same time, we recognized that uniformity and consistent application of rules would be important as we moved into national competition. And finally, we wanted to minimize any negative future impacts on students, so we adopted a do no harm mentality early on and used that to guide decisions regarding eligibility, seasons of competition, and other policies. We were doing all of this while navigating how to work virtually, reallocating resources, and dealing with the impact COVID was having on all of our personal lives. So no big deal, right? Well, the NAIA is so fortunate to have an incredible group of members that work tirelessly and unselfishly to make NAIA competition a reality in 2021. We adopted early on the moniker NAIA Together, and it definitely played out that way. Our shared governance groups came through at every turn. Our presidents and ADs led the way, with the vast majority supporting fall sports competition. They gave us the green light and supported efforts to return to play long before we had any details outlined or even knew how championships would function. The NAC joined the COP early on as leaders in this effort. In fact, the COP, NAC, and their respective executive committees met more than 50 times over the past year, focusing on creating a new path forward. I want to personally thank both Arvid Johnson, our COP chair, and Bill Popp, our NAC chair, for taking on what essentially were part-time jobs, helping the NAI successfully navigate these challenging times. It was a tremendous feat, and we couldn't have asked for two better leaders during a time of crisis. The ATA and CSA helped us understand the medical considerations and how we should be thinking about student-athlete safety. And while there were some heated discussions, screening, the people involved had positive intent and kept the focus on what was in the best interest of our athletes. CFAR, the NCC, the NEC met frequently and took our do no harm mantra to heart. They determined how to best assist students who were being told their 2020 seasons were ending abruptly, and we could not guarantee the 2021 season would happen. And last but certainly not least, the ADA, the CCA, and all of our different coaches associations provided much needed perspectives, especially on the practical side of how certain policies were likely to play out and impact competition. What I am describing here is really rare. You collectively agreed that we needed to bring back competition at the height of the pandemic. You decided what was best for your institution and your conference, and then respected those that chose or were forced down a different path. That mindset carried forward with flexible scheduling and reducing minimum contests so more members could qualify for postseason. You found a way to get to yes. Too bad we can't bottle this mentality and send it to our politicians in Washington. Now, who would have thought that a pandemic could turn into such an amazing story for our association? It became a time to be part of something bigger than a single person, a single team, institution, or conference. And what a great time to be an NAI athlete, to know that administrators, coaches, and staff were working long hours to find a way so you could continue to play the sport you love, share special moments with your teammates, and grow as a person. It's really remarkable when you think about it. And for those of you who have attended championships or even regular season competition, we hear it consistently from student athletes and their parents. They are genuinely grateful, and they want us to know that they appreciate our efforts to get to yes. We also had so many terrific partners who stepped up to make sure the NAIA could have competition in 2021. Longstanding hosts told us from the start, we are here for you, and we want to welcome back your players and coaches. Even when these hosts were getting local and regional pressure, they stayed committed, and many hosts, if not all, understood they would incur greater financial burden because of limited fans and minimal prospects for sponsors. Yet they welcomed us back. So a huge thank you to all of our hosts. We're incredibly grateful to every community that offered our student athletes a championship experience. I also have to specifically mention Mount Marty, St. Ambrose, and Oklahoma City University for stepping in at the last minute when original host sites became uncertain or were no longer available. I also want to call out our friends in Sioux City and the head cheerleader for the NAIA, GPAC Commissioner Corey Westra. Anybody who knows Corey sees daily his passion for the GPAC and the NAIA. No one took it harder than Corey when we had to pull teams from the court and cancel the 2020 basketball championships. And no one championed the cause for return to play and having championships more than he did. So I thank him for that, but also thank him for giving me some peace of mind as the NCAA was taking a beating over the uneven treatment of men and women in both Division I and Division II basketball tournaments. As I was seeing the media reports, I knew that women's basketball student athletes in Sioux City were having an equal, if not better experience than their counterparts in Kansas City. Sioux City has a tremendous facility and the operation is first class with special moments embedded throughout the event. But most importantly, the people of Sioux City and the host committee who Corey and Mike Skaggs have assembled flat out love the NAIA and the athletes who compete there each and every year. So Corey, thank you, my friend. You're a shining example of what makes the NAIA family so great. Finally, we also had most of our corporate partners stand by us, even when their revenues were suffering and their future was in doubt. Last summer, we anticipated losing a number of these sponsors. In reality, we only lost one and managed to add 10 new partners during a pandemic. That is an amazing accomplishment and a tribute to our internal revenue generation team. It would take too long to name all of the NAIA's partners, but here's a snapshot of their logos. If you have a chance, I encourage you to visit them in the online exhibit hall via the convention platform. Their dedication to our association was remarkable, and I hope we can all make an effort to return that loyalty. We learned early on, when trying to develop our COVID processes and protocols, that we had more questions than answers. Fortunately, we had a group of medical professionals willing to meet with us regularly and answer many of the questions to help ensure the safety of our championships. In particular, I want to thank Dr. Jim Borchers, the president of USCA, who chaired the medical advisory panel. Jim was always available despite serving many institutions and conferences around the country. I even talked with Jim on the day of the college football playoff championship game. For those who don't know, Jim played football at Ohio State and is a team physician at his alma mater. And yet, he was willing to assist with an NAIA issue on that very day. Because of his consistent counsel and his willingness to move forward, even while acknowledging there was some risk, Jim Borchers is another big reason we were able to get to yes. Now, I generally like to keep my State of the Association presentation focused on our members. However, this year, more so than any other year, I have to mention some National Office staff members who went so far above and beyond their normal duties. In a normal year, we have 12 to 15 people directly involved with championships. This year, every staff member played a role, and some played very significant ones. First, Kevin D. Kevin has been at the NAIA longer than any other employee and served in just about every department. That's why he was tasked with rolling out and managing testing at every opening round and final site venue. Every single one. It was a huge undertaking, and he pulled it off extremely well. He also managed a group of staff members we called the COVID liaisons. These individuals served as the boots on the ground at the championship events, helping teams navigate testing processes. Some of these folks worked in departments with little membership interaction, yet everyone stepped up to serve in this role effectively. We even brought in some of you from the membership to assist with opening rounds, and we will always be grateful for your willingness to help us make championships in 2021 a reality. In supporting COVID liaisons and other COVID-related efforts, I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to our championship staff. Our champs team has handled all of this like champs. They have made this process look easy, even though we know that that was not the case. And some of them were hired during the pandemic, so this was their first time managing an NAIA event. What an introduction to your first NAIA championship. In fact, it was such a challenge that we went to the bullpen and brought back a veteran. We asked Lori Thomas to reprise her old role as a champs administrator. Of course, Lori said yes, and she didn't miss a beat in running both volleyballs and helping Jake Hill get ready for tennis. Our athletics communications team also was stretched thin, but found a way to get it done. Much like your campus SIDs, these talented people have been in a 3-month cycle of overlapping sports and championships and more work than humanly possible. Now I could keep going with all the various staff members who jumped in, many of them in multiple ways, but I don't really have time during this session. However, I do want to recognize them and personally say a heartfelt thank you from me, but also from all of you who have expressed your appreciation during this last year. What you're now seeing are the staff members who are part of our various teams, the response team members who are answering questions and clarifying policy for our institutions during this chaotic time, our screening team, which developed the technology to support the screening process and also answered your questions in this area, the test distribution team, which handled the logistics of making sure COVID tests arrived at the 100+ opening round and final sites, and finally our research team, which identified and tracked key data points that helped provide direction as we were determining the feasibility of championships. I also want to give a big thank you to Lynn Parman, Chesney Salee, and Jen Saab. The 4 of us were the nucleus of the planning team over the last 14 months. They took on task after task and put together a roadmap that was executed in a way that allowed us to pull off the monumental challenge of NAIA championships during a pandemic. And personally, they helped me keep my sanity, although I'm sure the 3 of them would tell you that that was in doubt from time to time. So I now want to talk a little about how the championships have gone. We have completed 23 national championships and invitationals, and I have 5 more to go. Across all of those opening round and final site events, COVID testing has been required. the NAIA has administered more than 25,000 on-site COVID tests with fewer than 20 positive results. I've said the same thing in many of the championship update emails, but this is an amazing testament to the testing protocols that were adhered to by our participants. It's obvious that student athletes, coaches, administrators were determined to compete in a championship, and you made it happen. I've also had the good fortune of being able to attend a handful of our championships since March, and I've left each one incredibly grateful to our membership and student athletes. The positive attitudes, patience with the new processes, and the pure joy during the competition has been palpable. They say that you find out what you're made of during the most challenging times. Our association's resilience exceeded even my lofty expectations, so I'm thankful I get to work with members each week. You and your student athletes truly make my job worthwhile. Though maybe overshadowed by COVID, this was the first year that we combined our two divisions into one basketball tournament. After several years of study and debate before voting to combine the basketball divisions, we finally got to see what a return to one division would look like. Of the 16 teams at the men's final site in Kansas City, 8 were previously D1 and 8 were D2. For the women's final in Sioux City, 7 were previously D1 and 9 D2. And the competition was terrific, showing us that we had more in common than we may have thought. In addition to going back to one division, the NAIA had several other significant milestones. You may remember a little something called name, image, and likeness. I generally try to stay neutral regarding proposed legislation, but I was extremely proud and excited that our membership passed this bylaw last fall. NIL is another example of how our association puts student athletes first. And while that other collegiate athletic association continues to drag its feet, our athletes were allowed this type of freedom this year. In fact, I'll let one of them tell you about her experience in her own words.
It's been a debate for decades. Should college athletes be able to make money off their celebrity? Our power player is in the vanguard of a new era in college sports.
I feel super blessed and super grateful to be a trailblazer.
Volleyball player Chloe V. Mitchell, one of the first college athletes to make money off her own image.
Go.
It's a game changer for players who for decades have earned millions for schools, merchandisers, and broadcasters, but not themselves. How do you feel about college athletes finally getting to benefit from big-time college sports?
I could not be more excited. I mean, it's American, right? It's American to be able to get out there, to make your own brand, and to capitalize off of that. That's when an idea hit me.
It happened almost by accident and only partially due to sports. Mitchell gained a following as a do-it-yourself guru during the pandemic.
My name's Chloe, and on a whim, I decided to turn my shed into a she shed.
Sharing TikTok videos of how she turned her parents' storage shed into her own she shed.
In the end, my nasty old shed went from this to this.
The number of people following her blew up.
One of my best friends texted me and was like, Chloe, open up the app. Look at the views that you're getting. And at the time, I only had about 32 followers.
How many followers do you have on TikTok?
On TikTok, I have 2.7 million followers. I started the demolition process on the fire pit.
More followers meant more sponsors asking her to plug their products.
I was pretty tired after this, so I grabbed my Smart Cup.
But Mitchell faced a choice heading into her freshman year as an athlete at Aquinas College in Michigan.
If I keep working and making money off of TikTok, I will become ineligible to play my sport.
Then Mitchell's College Athletic Association, the NAIA, which is a smaller version of the NCAA, became the first to end the ban on college athletes making money from their name, image, or likeness.
My dad is going to love this.
Mitchell made her first ad for golf gear. May I ask how much they paid you?
It was around $3,000.
Wow, pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I'm paying for college. I paid for my car and my computer. So for me, that's great money.
We will have a session on Wednesday to learn more about NIL and how it is playing out around the country and on NAIA campuses. I hope you will join that conversation so we can learn more together about the current state and how it might be improved. In previous State Association speeches, you've heard me talk about return on athletics. ROA was a major piece of our current strategic plan, and that will continue into the next plan, being proposed to the COP this week. To learn more about our strategy and how we are transitioning from one plan to the next, you can join Lynn Parman, NAI COO, for a session Thursday. You will hear that our focus on membership recruitment and retention, as well as finding resources to support our many initiatives, will continue into the next plan. You also will hear that we are adding pillars to make more visible our efforts in the areas of student-athlete experience and development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We feel really good about the path forward in all of these areas, so I hope you'll join Lynn to learn more. I want to spend the remaining time I have today talking about ROA. Just in case there's someone out there still unfamiliar with this initiative, ROA was started several years ago for a number of reasons. The first was to help us understand better why the NAIA structure and policies allow members to operate competitive athletic programs at a fraction of the cost when compared against NCAA D2 institutions. The second reason was to provide a tool that would help our members analyze the impact athletics has on the campus and explore ways to improve that impact. The logic is that once we better understand the various factors impacting things like recruitment, retention, and finances, campuses will be able to adjust their approach to align with institutional goals. At the same time, the NAIA can potentially create new rules and policies to assist from a more macro perspective. Through much hard work by our staff, with assistance from many of you in the membership, the NAIA piloted a data and analytics platform called ROA Insights in 2019. As of fall 2020, Insights is now available to all institutions. This free tool provides access to the only resource available to maximize the business performance of small college athletics programs. A special thank you to each of you who participated in the collection of the data and to our early adopters who have been working side by side with Alan Grossbach and the team to build out the tool. Over the last several months, our work is centered on three areas: experience, adoption, and insights. In terms of experience, we wanted to understand better how easy it was to navigate and use the platform. So late last year, we invited members to participate in a research study. There were some basic improvement areas identified, such as the need for a new homepage and a desire to embed more resources into the tool. These changes and others were implemented a few weeks ago in an effort to improve the overall member experience. Turning to adoption, we know members are using the tool to upload data, but beyond that, we want to help you understand the value of the platform and the data you have access to. And ultimately, we want you to use it on a regular basis. We've spent considerable time over the last several months identifying ways to measure and track such usage. In essence, we want to know how you're using it and how you would like to use it. Lastly, I want to touch on insights. With data from 250 schools, the NAIA and its members, we're sitting on a gold mine that can be used to help colleges gauge their performance. We can view the data at an aggregate level to identify trends and information that might inspire members and prospective members to think about their athletics program in new ways. This year, we began studying a subset of the data to help answer some important questions that the membership has been asking. I'll share some early thoughts, but know that moving forward, the NAIA is committed to diving deep into data analytics, identifying key insights, and inspiring our members to consider new ideas based on this analysis. Here are some examples of what we're seeing. We chose to highlight retention because it is critically important to all of you and because the tool is positioned well in this area. For our purposes, retention is defined as any current student returning from the previous academic year. It should be noted that the data set for retention is limited to the 70 schools that have been using the system for more than a year. Our analysis has confirmed some conclusions that many of you already know or at least believe to be true. Women's sports generally retain better than men's, although in some, like golf, tennis, and cross country, they are very similar. Smaller roster size sports retain better than larger roster size sports, and the highest retaining sports generally have discount rates exceeding 50%. However, some early conclusions are a bit surprising. For example, spending more operationally on a sport does not necessarily improve retention. This means we can now try to understand better what investments, staffing, operations, travel, equipment, uniforms, etc., may be the most important. I am most excited about the ability to dig deeper into some areas that can be very helpful to members. Let me walk through with you one example. Let's compare retention for men's and women's basketball. Women's programs retain at an average of 69%, while men are at 57%. No real surprise here because women's teams generally retain at a higher percentage, and also, in this case, have the advantage of a smaller average roster size at 21 compared to 25 for the men. The interesting part comes in our analysis of various roster sizes and the corresponding retention rates. Both sports have the highest retention within rosters sizes between 25 and 29. In this band, both increased retention by 9%. So while women still outpace the men, we have begun to identify a potential sweet spot for basketball roster size. And interestingly, it is above the average roster size for both sports. This is just one analytics example of the hundreds that could be pursued. So we need your help and your patience. It will continue to take time for the data to be robust enough to examine the various possibilities that could show significant correlation. The more you help us think through the possibilities, and even better, give us any preliminary conclusions you have drawn, the more efficient and effective we will be. To learn more about the details of ROA Insights, I encourage you to attend one or both of the ROA sessions during the convention. Those sessions take place tomorrow and on May 27th at 10 a.m. I hope you agree with me that this has been an incredible year for the NAIA, our members, and our 77,000 student athletes. I also hope you'll agree that we are positioned well for the future. 2021 has shown us the power of coming together while respecting the autonomy of institutions. We've also seen that others in higher ed are taking notice of the NAIA way, now strengthened by ROA, and the data that demonstrate the impact athletics can have on our campuses. And personally, I have a renewed belief that the NAIA serves an important role for institutions that believe in competitive athletics at a reasonable cost, the importance of character values, and the student athlete at the center of all we do. I look forward to working with all of you to these ends and to a bright future for the NAIA and all we serve. Now please join us for the live Q&A session by clicking on the Zoom link, the 1:30 Central session in the VFair itinerary. We will start promptly at 1:30. Thank you.